What's up guys, Wiz the Wiz here. I'm back after a long and much needed winter vacation, but I'm ready to start making videos again. So today I'm going to be working on my 2001 Audi A4, and we're going to be changing the timing belt and all the other related components like the water pump, thermostat, pulleys. It's going to be a whole job. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so there's a couple of ways of doing this to get started. Usually what people refer to this as is putting the car into service mode, where effectively you have to pull the front bumper forward so you can create clearance to do the timing belt job on the front of this motor. What I'm going to do is almost all of that, but I'm actually going to pull off the entire front bumper just so that I can get a better look at things.
Okay, so at this point I need to stop and clarify some things. When I started making this video, I wanted to make it a instructive video on how you can change the timing belt yourself. However, throughout this process, I realized I didn't have the skills or techniques to get this done in an effective way. So what this video is going to be about is, should you change your timing belt? And ultimately, if you do so, here are some tips and tricks to make the job a little bit easier. All right, let's get back to the video. Getting the front bumper off is mostly a painless endeavor. There are a lot of screws, bolts, and trim pieces that need to be removed before the actual bumper itself can come off. And by the bumper, I mean the bumper cover. So at this point, I'm still feeling pretty confident in my ability to get this job done.
Okay, so to put the front bumper into service mode, we need to reinstall these two long bolts that we pulled out of the bumper originally, but we're going to put them in a different spot so we can slide the nose out on top of them.
You won't need to thread these bolts in all the way, just enough so that it can support the weight of the front end of the car should be enough. When I was working on the car myself, I was worried that the weight of the car over time would cause these bolts to flex or bend in a way that they're not meant to, but they were overall really sturdy and held up really well.
Guys, I gotta admit, this is my first time doing a timing belt on anything, so man, wish me luck. If I can do it, you can do it too. Have faith. Let's keep going. Okay, so next we want to move the AC compressor belt, which is right here. We need to reduce or loosen the bolts on the tensioner here so that we can do that. There are two bolts. They both take a 6mm Allen wrench, and they're a bitch to get to. So just work with it, be patient, and you can get them out. I've already loosened these ones, so I can move on to my next stage. All right, stop everything. This is Future Wiz coming back to tell you this job is taking so much more time than I would have thought. It's very difficult. It's very tight spaces to work in. This is not for those who don't have a little bit of experience. I don't think that anyway, I'm coming back now on the second day, and what we're going to do is undo a couple more components for the front end here and see if we can't make a little bit more room to do this service. Currently, with the space that I was able to get yesterday, is not enough. So we're going to undo the power steering coolant line, and we're also going to undo the upper radiator hose to see if that gets us the room we need.
A common theme throughout this entire process was a limited amount of space to work with between the radiator and the front of the motor. So here's tip number one for you. Once you get the nose pulled out as far as you can, there's going to be some tension, and throughout the day it will try to pull itself together again. What I did was I took a piece of 4x4 and I stuck it between the engine block and the radiator to make sure that the space that we were able to get would not go away. And that helped us so much. All right, the next two tips that I have to make this job a lot easier are also in the same theme of making sure that you have enough space to actually do the job in a way that doesn't make it a complete headache. So first off, instead of removing the fan from the fan clutch assembly itself, What we're going to do is remove the entire fan and clutch together. This is going to give you a lot more room to do your overall install. And also on that same theme, while you're there, you might as well remove the alternator as well. Now, removing the alternator gives you access, or better access, to replace your thermostat, which you should be replacing if you're doing this job anyway. So go ahead, remove the alternator. It's going to take you an extra 10 minutes, but it's going to save you 20 minutes of headache. So that's how I do the math.
Alright, so after struggling for longer than I care to admit, we finally have the new timing belt on, and it is in time on both the cam gear and on the crank down there. I know we can't get a good look at it right now. So now that we finally have this nightmare over, it's time to torque down the harmonic balancer with the new bolts that I have ordered. That's why it's taken me so long. Didn't know I had to replace those. And then we're going to go ahead and get everything else wrapped up. So we're on the home stretch here. Alright guys, so we got the engine put back together. I'm going to walk through some of the things that I did to make this job overall easier. So let's go ahead and take a look. So first off, the serpentine belt, when reinstalling this, obviously it's good to have an extra hand. If somebody could hold this tensioner over while you install the belt, makes it much easier. One of the things that we did was we just got the belt over the alternator, and since we're in service mode, it gives us great access to the crank, and we were able to rotate the crank to kind of get the belt to get back on, so that was much easier. And we did the same thing with the AC drive as well. Alright, so now all we have to do is put on our intake hose, fill her with coolant, and see if we blow up the motor. There was a lack of oil pressure on your exchange head there. Alright, aside from the array of sockets and socket extensions that you'll need to do this job, there are 4 tools that really I felt made the job go a lot easier, and then there's 2 of these that you absolutely do need to get this job done correctly. So the things that made the job a lot easier were these ratcheting articulating wrenches. Okay, they really did help get the job done a lot easier, especially in those tight spaces where you can't fit a full-size socket. And then And then the socket that you really do need is this 19mm 12-point socket. This is so that you can rotate the crank. It's very important that you use a 12-point, not a 6-point. And then one of the things that I did to make the job a whole lot easier was remove the fan entirely rather than the 4 bolts in the front. There's just not enough room to get in there when it's in service mode. So you need one of these 3mm pinhole punches to lock up the fan while you break the bolt on the back side. So you will need one of these. Ultimately, save yourself the pain. Make sure you have this ahead of time. Don't struggle. Alright, so I got the car finally put all back together. I think we really need to sit down and talk about what it took to actually complete this job. And ultimately answer the question, should you change your own timing belt? There's a couple of different ways to look at this. Number one, I always think it's a great idea for people to go get more experience and be able to learn new skills and new things that they can do and be self-sufficient, right? I'm also looking at this from the side of this is a job that, if done wrong, can have catastrophic consequences for your motor and ultimately your bank account. I think that if you have 0 mechanical experience at all, this is not the job for you to start on. Go change your brakes, do something like that, right? But changing a timing belt, there's too much that can go wrong. It's too frustrating. There's not a lot of space to work in, right? You need to develop those skills over time before trying to tackle this kind of job. However, if you have even some mechanical experience, some medium jobs that medium level jobs that you've completed before in the past, I think you should go for it. Keep in mind, this job, it's going to take you much longer than you're initially anticipating. You may have noticed that my clothes changed a couple of times during this video. That is because this car has been sitting here on this stand for 3 weekends. I could not finish it. I had to do parts runs. It was so frustrating, and if you're on a time crunch and this is your daily driver, this is not the thing for you to do. Have a space where you can set it up for a couple weekends. Give yourself the time, all right? And if you're an expert mechanic, well, I'm not talking to you because you already know how to do this. For those that are the medium level, I would say mechanic, or have some, or an adept at mechanical things, have somebody check your work. I had my brother here, I had my father here, and I was like, hey guys, can you just double check my timing for me, make sure that I haven't done something wrong. My brother's changed his timing belt on his 1.8 turbo before and made the mistake of being 1 tooth off, and I didn't want to make the same mistake. And they came down, they checked it, everything looked great. So I'm happy that I had their support here. So always have somebody that you trust check your work. All right, and with that, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.